Bryan, we're back. Another edition of Bears Over Beers. It's been a while, my friend. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Excited to crack one open with you. Good time of year for some good beers, and I could use one today. So excited about that, man. How are you?
I am good. It's finally warming up here in the Midwest, so every single day I can go outside without a coat on, feeling real good.
How cold is it when you wake up these days?
Like it's like 40 to 50 this week, I would
Okay.
say. It's been getting to like low 70s. So
Remind our viewers and those joining us where you're at in the country.
I'm in eastern Iowa, so I'm about a 4 to 4.5 hour drive from Chicago, straight west.
Okay. It's
And
closer
it
than me.
was Yeah, yeah, like we didn't have a ton of snow this winter. It's kind of odd, but it was very cold, and I hate cold weather. So always good to get out of that. Now, what about you? Because I mean, you're out there. It's a little warmer climate for you.
Yeah, I'm in the mountains of Western North Carolina. And I think it's like an 11-hour drive to Chicago from where I'm at. I've made that drive a couple times. We also had a really cold winter, not as much snow, but really cold. A lot of days in single digits and teens for us. Not many negative, which I think is better than you guys.
Yeah.
But it's been beautiful here lately. We went through a dry spell and it's been raining, but you wake up and it's like 30s or 40s. And then throughout the day, it's 60s, 70s. So this is a beautiful time of year for sure.
Nice. Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, if you want to make that long drive to Chicago this summer, we've been talking behind the scenes. We might try to make something happen. So more on that in the future, you guys. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. But we're talking about something exciting we might try this summer. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
But of course, this is Bears Over Beers, presented by Second City Gridiron. I am Ryan Drosty. That's Bryan Orenchuk. And, like we've been doing, checking in the off season a little bit. Of course, during the regular season, we'll be live each and every week, just like we were last year, But right now, we're checking in when there's stuff to talk about. We kind of talked a little bit about free agency last time we were on the air several weeks ago. And now we've got the NFL draft to talk about. We're going to talk about the highs and lows for the NFC North. We're going to talk about the winners and the losers on the Chicago Bears roster, which, by the way, Bryan and myself have had 2 columns on that this week on Windy City Gridiron. So check that out if you need something to read later tonight. And of course, we're drinking because it's Bears Over Beers. And so, Bryan, what are you going to be pouring tonight? What do you have for us?
Oh, man. Local brewery called Wicked Weed. You can't really see it because of the lights.
Let me make you full screen. Hold on. Let me do this. Here we go.
Freak of Nature. It's a double IPA. Okay. In honor of our first round pick, Freak of Nature, Colston Loveland, 6'6", 250 pounds, runs like a receiver, and he pretty much can play double positions, tight end, wide receiver. Colston Loveland, the Freak of Nature. And I have my large frozen Chicago Bears glass I'll be going with today. Really looking forward to it, man. I love some good double IPAs. Haven't had one in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
So how about you? What do you got cooking tonight?
Well, first of all, I got to say, Bryan, that is one heavy-duty mug. That is an impressive mug. I wish I had something like that. Best I can do is, hold on a second. I got a 2006 NFC North Champions mug here. Looks more like a German beer stein or something.
Yeah.
But not as good as that. That's solid. You have to let me know how it is. I've got something here from Northeastern Iowa. Never drank this one on the program before. This is from Pulpit Rock Brewing. It is called, hold on, let me make this full screen. This is called, I believe it's pronounced Saftig. It's a German word, which means juicy, Bryan. It is also an IPA. There's a really good brewery this is from Decorah, Iowa. And they have another brewery up there called Toppling Goliath, which is pretty well known around the country these days. And this brewery just down the road, also in Decorah, called Pulpit Rock, a lot of the original brewers from Toppling Goliath started this one. So it kind of has a lot of the beer snobs around here feel like the real secret ingredient of Toppling Goliath went and started Pulpit Rock. I'll just say that. And they make some really, really solid stuff. And hey, I was going to say, I know you're kind of an outdoorsy guy, right? If you ever get to this region, you got to get to Decorah. It is an awesome spot, kind of the Mississippi River Valley. You'd like it. I just have like it.
How far from your place is that?
It's about an hour and a half from. I'm in Cedar Falls. It's about an hour and a half from here.
West or east of you?
It's like northeast, almost diagonal.
Isn't that towards Chicago?
Yeah, but it's more in like the north. It's pretty close to the Minnesota border. Okay. So they're a little closer east to Chicago, but then you got to go north quite a ways too. So it's there's a lot of Vikings fans up there.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Better than Green Bay, right?
Yeah, anything is. Although, I loved. It was fun having the draft in Green Bay this year, and having. I don't know if you saw Seth Rollins, because Clay Matthews obviously opened up. Well, before we get into that, man, let's cheers.
Yeah, we got cheers. I got a lot of foam here, so
yeah, me too. Me too. Cheers. Man. Go Bears.
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
Like a foam mustache going here.
Okay. Yeah. So Lambeau, man, Clay Matthews, they all start on the bikes, which I thought was a cute touch, coming out on the bikes like they do at training camp in Lambeau. And then Clay Matthews, letter from the president, and Bears still suck. Obviously we're still on their mind. I thought that was, whatever. It's whatever. Yeah. But then Seth Rollins comes out. I loved it. Caleb Williams undefeated. He owns Lambeau. And then the UK Fan of the Year. I don't know if you saw that one too. I think it was our third or fourth round pick. I guess we traded out of the third. And she was like, just in from Prime Minister. Caleb Williams is undefeated at Lambeau still. I love it.
Hold on, I have got to put a picture of this on the screen. I'm trying to find. I did not see that. So like day 3, I was actually down in Davenport, which is Seth Rollins' hometown, because my oldest daughter had a dance recital down there, and so I wasn't able to watch day 3 at all. But I actually, as luck would have it, I was just a couple of blocks away from where Seth Rollins has a wrestling training school down there. Oh. So yeah, I went and took a picture and went to a coffee shop that Seth owns. Here he is. Let me just put this on the screen. That was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Iowa's own Seth Rollins. I have never seen a crowd trolled better during a draft than that. That was the greatest draft pick announcement of all time by Seth Rollins.
Yeah, I agree. That was epic. And speaking of hometowns, our second round pick, Des White, former Chicago Bear, he actually is from Jacksonville, Florida, where I went to high school. He went to the Bolles School, which is one of the private powerhouse football programs in Jacksonville, and then Georgia Tech, and then he went to the Bears. And I thought that was interesting that he made that second selection. But it's cool how they do that. They bring back a lot of former players. This year I saw a lot more current players, which was interesting. Yeah. I enjoy it. It was fun. It was fun. But, a lot of draft picks said not much to do in Lambeau. So
Ashton Genty, right? He was like, there's not much to do up here.
Yeah, Cam Ward too.
Yeah. I mean, after you check out the Lambeau Field Museum and all that, that's about it. I hear Titletown Brewing is decent from a few friends. I've not been there, but I hear they have some good breweries. Look, Wisconsin, they're definitely known for their beer. I got to give them props for that.
Yeah, I heard something like most beer purchased or consumed per capita in the entire world is in I think either Milwaukee or Green Bay or something like that.
That is insane.
I mean, if you got nothing else to do, might as well drink.
Right. All right, so let's get to this draft. We can approach this multiple ways. I mean, I think the way to start is, Bryan, you're a former running back. We all thought the Bears were going running back early. I mean, you had a column up on Windy City Gridiron how, we come around to the idea of them getting Ashton Genty. Turned out he didn't last till number 10, and we didn't trade up or anything like that. But you were very vocal in your column that you didn't want the Bears to trade up to get him. But if he was there, absolutely. Now, how surprised were you that they went tight end with number 10? Because, there had been murmurings about Warren, possibly getting chosen by the Bears at number 10. But I think when we saw the star out of Michigan, I think we were all a little shocked. Were you not?
Yeah, I was a little bit. The way the board fell was not very advantageous for us. But I preferred, and I was vocal about that as well. I prefer to trade back, but not many teams were looking to trade back. Although, the report came out, Ian Rappaport, saying that a lot of people were trying to trade up, making phone calls. And then once we picked Loveland, all of a sudden the calls stopped. So there might have been some opportunity for us to trade back with someone wanting Loveland. But in the end, we got him, and I'm glad we did. The tackles on the board remaining were not in a, not a good value in my opinion. And he's a blue chip caliber player. His skill set complements not DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet really well. It's more similar, more akin to Sam Laporta, whom Ben Johnson coached to an All-Pro as a rookie out of Detroit. And he's younger. He just turned 21 years old. And his advanced metrics, Ryan, even when you compare them to Tyler Warren, are off the charts. As far as depth of target, the diversity of routes run, the types of routes run. He's got, compared to other tight ends in this class, the lowest percentage of screen passes, which means he's a downfield threat for a tight end that can run all sorts of routes, create separation on his own. That's not something that Tyler Warren can necessarily do. So I'm fascinated to see what Ben Johnson can do. I would say the pick that surprised me most was our next one. Was Luther Burden III, a guy that both you and I are high on, as we talked about this week in those columns. But that surprised me because you can complement Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland, create a lot of mismatches in with that 12 personnel. Then you get another receiver. All of a sudden, you've got 3 stud receivers, 2 stud tight ends. That's 5 wide. How often do you run 5 wide, 1 back formations? Not often. So we'll get to that. But that one surprised me more than the first round pick. Obviously, I was bummed when Genty wasn't there. I really was. And going back to what you said, I had to come around, Ryan, to being okay with him at 10. At first, I was not. I didn't want to get a running back until the 3rd round, until our pick 72. I wanted to wait because the value was so deep in this class. I wanted to wait and load up in the trenches. But, the more I started thinking about it, him being a blue chip player, and he went like a blue chip player. So, not really too many surprises as far as who went in the top 10, but the way it fell, I can understand why we went with the 21-year-old dynamo, freak of nature from Michigan.
Yeah, I would say, and we kind of talked about this when we previewed the draft a little bit the last time we were on the air, and we talked about the running back position, and I don't think either of us really wanted him to go running back at number 10. I talked up, of course, being an Iowan, Caleb Johnson, the Hawkeye. I thought 39-41, that would be a place to take him. And, turned out, yes, he was on the board. He ended up getting picked at number 83. So they could have had Caleb Johnson, so I thought for sure with their 2nd or 3rd pick, they'd go running back. That's where I was most surprised because I, heard the buzz that they might be interested in Tyler Warren. I'd seen that in a lot of mocks. And then when they drafted Colston Loveland, I guess I just hadn't paid as much attention to him, being a fan of the Big Ten. Like, I obviously knew about him, but he wasn't really on my radar at all for the Bears to take him. And then, once they took him, then I, of course, started diving into his history more a little bit. And, the simplest way to say it, what everyone says is, he's essentially a tight end who plays like a wide receiver, and he's going to create mismatches. You look at his stats at Michigan, and he was lining up in the slot like 48% of the time, in line just 32% of the time. This year his numbers dropped off a little bit. Of course, quarterback position changed, didn't have JJ McCarthy there. Yet, he led the team in receiving yards, 9 of Michigan's 10 games this season. Now he had the injury too. He's coming off of that with the shoulder, but he should be good to go by the time training camp comes around. But yeah, I mean, just like you said, Bryan, I'm really, really fascinated to see what they can do with this guy because he's different. He's quite a bit different from Kmet. I think, there's a whole other discussion on what does this mean for Cole Kmet down the line. But right now, when you think about how the Bears have this guy who, like, as you said, made Laporta such a star, this offensive guru, we've got a guy like this on the roster now with mismatch potential, DJ on the outside, of course, Rome, our second round pick that we're about to talk about here with Luther Burden. It's going to be, have we ever seen a Bears offense with this many weapons on the team in the history of our time as fans? Absolutely not.
No, we thought we did last year. Remember?
Yeah.
I mean, last year I thought was stacked as well. We had Keenan Allen and Gerald Everett. I think we all hoped would be a little bit more of that sort of a receiving threat at tight end to complement Kmet. Obviously, he lost all the gas in his tank. Keenan Allen was I liked Keenan Allen, what he brought to the team, but Luther Burden adds a different element. Rome Odunze, 1 year, removed from being a rookie. And obviously, most importantly, is the protection that we added up front to give Caleb some time to disperse the ball appropriately. But yeah, I don't think we have. You go back to the B. Marsh, Alshon, Cutler, Forte, Martellus Bennett days. Like, that's kind of the closest that we've seen. But this is that and then some, So, I don't think we have. And I think the most important part is who's calling the plays, who's leading that offense. That's what makes me most excited. Hope springs eternal this time of year, especially for Bears fans. This is where we win, is the off season. We don't do much winning in the season. So at least not historically lately. But yeah, I'm excited, and I'm with you as far as overall draft surprises. Yeah, I'm most surprised we did not pick a running back in the first 3 or 4 rounds. I was disappointed that we had traded back, and that's when we missed out on a Caleb Johnson. And we just kept missing out on backs. You look through my top 10, and they just kept going off the board. And the last one remaining was Jaden Blue, and we picked Ruben Hippolyte. And that's kind of my biggest head scratcher was, you got a guy here who skill set wise is very similar to a Jahmyr Gibbs. That was my pro comp for him. And he's on the board there, who would have really complemented well with our 7th rounder, Kyle Monangai, the 2 Thunder Lightning types. We passed him up.
Yeah.
And, one of those things we'll see. But yeah, that was my biggest head scratcher as well, is not getting that running back. And like you said, I'm a former running back, so that one kind of hurt. But I'm excited about Monangai. He's got some good tape out there. He's one of my guys I liked. But yeah, I was disappointed we missed out on one of those studs in the first few.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to him, but getting him in the 7th round, given, what he did in college, that could end up being one of the biggest steals of the draft. So I just think what we're talking about right now, though, with Colston Loveland, this might be a good time to just throw in what this means for Cole Kmet and talk about this a little bit, because we talked about this, both of us, today in the column on Windy City Gridiron, and Nick is kind of, hitting this idea right now in the chat. And Nick Grimes, we appreciate you tuning in tonight. Nick says, I love the guys, but it does feel like DJ and Kmet were technical losers from this draft. And I think with the next pick, we'll hit DJ on this too. But Bryan, I mean, I'm a big fan of Cole Kmet. He definitely had a disappointing year last year. A lot of that was on the play calling. I feel he could have done more. I still feel like he's a pretty high ceiling guy, and you'd like to keep him around. But we talked about how, especially in our column today, like the financial aspect of this with him and DJ is going to start playing into it if the Bears become, what we think they're going to over the next couple of years. and they start having to pay guys, and the cap starts to become a concern. What do you make of this for Cole Kmet's future?
Yeah, honestly, I would agree with Nick. I think technical losers, it sounds fair. It sounds accurate. Um, I think I have more optimism in Cole Kmet's long-term future with Chicago than I do DJ Moore. Obviously, price tag for wide receiver is a bit higher than tight end. Cole's a little bit younger. His skill set's more complementary. He's also, childhood Bears fan, hometown kid. And I think he'd be more likely to take a hometown discount if he's a part of a winning franchise. His favorite franchise begins winning. I think he's more likely to do that. And I think, Ben Johnson can create plays and schemes for both him and Loveland to succeed. And so, I think Ben Johnson can do the same thing with DJ Moore. I'm excited about, those three receivers in that room creating havoc for defenses. But like you said, the price tag's going to keep going up. And DJ Moore, he's built on explosion. Cole Kmet's not. So as they get older, I think Cole's going to age a little bit more gracefully than DJ. And DJ only has, a handful more years of prime football. So I think he'll be here this season. I think he's going to have a great season. I would not be surprised if we traded him after the season. I hope we don't, but that's one of those things where as a fan, you hope it doesn't happen, but you can understand it if and when it does, especially if, Braxton Jones comes back and all of a sudden he needs a contract because he plays well. That's a left tackle. That's going to be huge money. And obviously Caleb is still on a rookie contract too. So by the time that wraps up, he's going to have to get paid, handsomely. So yeah, I agree with Eric there. I think both DJ and Cole have something to prove here. And that's not even taking into account the comments that Ben Johnson has made, since taking over as head coach about what he's expecting from the team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the quotes right in front of me here, but we all read those quotes, and it sounded like he was kind of making it known that, look, everybody around here's got to kind of prove their worth, and maybe some people haven't been living up to their billing. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people took that it could be directed at DJ, because we all saw,
Right.
Last year we talked about it on the show. Everyone knows what I'm talking about, like the plays where he walked off the field and all of that. And look, we love DJ Moore. But it was a frustrating season all around. We know DJ was frustrated just with the quarterback situation going into the year, and what had happened there. I don't want to open that can of worms. But changing quarterbacks and starting fresh, and then the way the season went. And yeah, I mean, look, DJ's making a lot of money, and with his age, he signed that contract last year in training camp, and you looked at it as he wants to retire a Bear, but that's certainly not a certainty, given the direction of this team and the money invested there.
Right. Which is why I say that surprised me more in the second round than in the first. I would have rather gotten Caleb Johnson then, honestly. Just someone that more fills a need, but still a high talent, as opposed to, kind of a luxury pick in the best, obviously extremely talented player. And I'm really excited about, his mentality and attitude coming into it. Luther Burden's being passed on in the first round. He's a first round talent. Jacob Infante had him as the top receiver a year ago, coming out this year for a reason. And he's a like Kyrie said in his article today too, he's a dog. Like he's very similar to DJ Moore. He's a menace to bring down after the catch, extremely fast, agile for a guy that's built thick like a rock, 6 foot, 220, or not 220, 200 pounds. He's going to be good, but would it have been better suited picking an edge at that point, or one of those running backs? I know Travion Henderson had just gone off the board. Quinshon Judkins had just gone off the board. But you still had RJ Harvey, Caleb Johnson, So, yeah, that did surprise me, and I think that's what kind of spells the questions about, their long-term fit together. But if anybody can make these guys all happy, it's Ben Johnson. he's making fifth offensive lineman love playing football. He's going to have no problem making, 3 receivers, excited and productive in his scheme. And then, 2 tight ends, one of which is a huge Bears fan and is as selfless as they come. I can't speak highly enough for Cole Kmet and, his mentality since he's come into the league. So, I think they're being calculated in who they bring in, the type of players they bring in, and you can't have too many weapons. So I'm excited to see it on the field for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the shock factor was I was expecting the same thing. Like early on, a running back, an edge rusher, possibly O-line, but I think the chances of that diminished after free agency.
Yeah.
And I think as this draft played out, we were instantly seeing the influence of Ben Johnson. I mean, just adding to that toolbox as many weapons as possible. And Luther Burden was not on my radar at all.
Me neither.
when they announced that, I'm like, wait, what? But like you said it, Jacob, I mean, obviously being from that, or having lived in that area, I should say, is super high on the guy, and for good reason. I mean, he's a fast dude, 4.440, I believe he ran at the combine.
Gets quick.
Yeah, yards after the catch, I mean, is the big thing with him. So
beast. I knew it. I actually watched it with my brother, who's a big Lions fan, who I actually think had the best draft other than us in the NFC North. But they were showing the Bears war room before the pick was announced. And I saw Antoine Randall come up and emphatically hug Ryan Poles. And I was like, dude, this is going to be Burden. I had not thought it until then, but why would a receiver coach be all excited if we weren't getting a receiver? So that's what clued in. That was only seconds before the pick, but yeah, it kind of shocked me too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was watching the same broadcast, and they're like, "Wait, the Bears are going receiver or something?" Like they called it. Oh, that's Antoine Randall. Right. That means they're going receiver.
Yeah.
But I mean, you just look at his stats from college. You look at the scouting report here, and he had an All-American sophomore season. Came back down to earth a little bit in 2024, which is why his stock dropped a little bit, because as he said, Jacob had him number 1. Coming into this year. As the wide receiver in 2025. But yeah, I mean, what I'm seeing in the scouting report is that, maybe his route running needs to go a little bit better. Separation isn't always quite there. But if you get the ball in this guy's hands, his yard after catch is insane. So I think, Ben Johnson is going to find a way to do just that. He can work on the route running, but you get the ball in this guy's hands, and, moving forward, if he really shows his rookie year that he can be a guy to complement Rome, this is kind of what we've been lacking, is that burner in the slot. And, he is a guy who was primarily a slot receiver in college. 85.3% of his snaps last year were in the slot. And, Rome being kind of that bigger possession guy. And then, DJ can get down the field for sure. But I mean, I think it looks long-term like could be Rome and Luther Burden if things go the right way. And so DJ, like we said, could be the odd man out.
Yeah. And again, like you look back at the stats and the metrics for Luther, and it makes sense for Ben Johnson to get him. I don't know if you saw this, but the list of every SEC wide receiver to post at least 1,200 or more yards during their first 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. You have Jamar Chase, the aforementioned Alshon Jeffrey, who was a stud in college at South Carolina and for us, Mike Evans, Jerry Jeudy, A.J. Brown, and Luther Burden. I mean, those are bona fide number 1 receivers in this league, and he is right up there in production. I saw another stat where the SEC wide receivers to post at least 30 broken tackles, I think it was 30 broken tackles in a season over the past 5 years. Malik Neighbors and Luther Burden, and that's it.
Wow.
So I can understand the rationale between an offensive-minded coach wanting to get a weapon like that. And we did that column. And I think out of winners and losers, and maybe this can transition into it, Ryan, I don't know, you tell me, but there is not a bigger winner or a bigger loser, someone who's been more impacted greater, in my opinion, than Caleb Williams from this draft. Yeah. I don't think there's a player in the league that has benefited from the draft more than Caleb Williams.
That's what I was just going to say. League wide, let alone the Bears. I mean, I've seen some national columns making this point too. I mean, it's just, we go. You said earlier, we went into last season saying things like, "Wow, no rookie quarterback, has ever had a team lined up for him like this." We were certainly concerned about the O-line. We all talked about that, but we didn't foresee all the injuries. We thought they would play better. I don't think anyone thought the Bears last year were going to have like a top tier offensive line, but we thought good enough. And then with all the weapons around him, we didn't see the chaos coming from the coaching circles and, him, how many offensive coordinators he was going to work with and all of that. But dude, like all the weapons we had last year are still here. And then you add these guys, you've beefed up the interior of the offensive line. You've added a tackle who could possibly start if we needed to. We haven't talked about yet. Certainly a swing tackle for the Bears out of this draft. I mean, Caleb is really, really sitting pretty. I was actually talking with some of my good friends today. It was like our fantasy football group chat that we all just talk football all year. And someone asked me as the resident Bears fan, where do you think Caleb ranks as far as quarterbacks in the NFC North? And I'm like, look, you have to have Jared Goff number one, just based on what he's done. I said, JJ, obviously unknown. We don't know what he's going to be. I think he's set up for a lot of success too. But then it's like, all right, Jordan Love, Caleb Williams. I'm a Bears fan. I'm going to be biased here, but like, I think most people would rather have Caleb than Jordan Love. Jordan Love, I would probably have him outrank Caleb right now to be objective, just based on what he's done. We've also seen Jordan Love be wildly inconsistent. He turns the ball over more than Caleb, with Caleb being the most sacked quarterback in the league. All that instability around him, and he still turned the ball over less, which I think is incredibly impressive.
Oh gosh.
I'm like, I'm sure people would have Jordan Love higher, but like personally, I'd rather have Caleb. And then my buddy who's a Bengals fan jumped in. He's like, I would definitely rather have Caleb than Jordan Love. But I think the objective ranking right now is Goff, Jordan, Caleb, and then JJ is just the big question mark. But I mean, I would not at all be surprised if the talk at the end of 2025 is Goff or Caleb. Just given the coaching we have now, because it's like, look, what made Goff who he is? That guy's here now. So if there's anybody who can do it, it should be our head coach. All these weapons, nobody has benefited more in this offseason. And I know, if people are listening to this that aren't Bears fans, they're going to be like, same thing that they said last year, walking into the perfect situation. But I just think it's objectively true. This guy has weapons everywhere around him, and now he should be protected. He's got the coach he needs. If this doesn't work, Bryan, I don't know what I'm gonna do as a Bears fan. What is it ever gonna work if this isn't the guy, to finally be that quarterback we've been looking for? We have, I mean, I gotta give credit to polls. Like they've set it all up that he should succeed. Right. So I mean, let's see what happens, but I'm certainly excited.
I mean, we're used to being disappointed as Bears fans. Let's be real. But you talk about objectively, and I guess goes back to what's the question? Who would you rather have quarterbacking your team? And I think if you were to poll fans across the globe, even professional analysts, I think Caleb Williams would come out on top over Jordan Love. Yeah. Let's not forget, not only did he have not the same offensive line, better offensive line than us, he also had Matt LaFleur, who is considered one of the best offensive minds in the game, calling plays and coaching his team. We had Matt Eberflus, so that's a huge difference. But until we beat them, we just beat them. Yeah, there's no reason for us to even think that Caleb's not already ahead of Jordan Love, in my opinion.
Undefeated at Lambeau Field. Seth Rollins throwing right when he started going down that line. I was like, I know that's what he's going to say. When he started talking about Lambeau Field, he's going to say undefeated at Lambeau Field. Here it comes. So perfect. Bravo. Cheers, Seth Rollins.
Cheers,
Appreciate
Seth
it.
Rollins.
But yeah, I mean, Nick said in the chat, we saw Caleb throw over 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns with that offensive line and that coaching, and he's going to be a freak next year. I mean, I sure hope so. It should be a fun season. It really should. All right.
Yeah, I struggle. You talked about your boys in fantasy. I struggle, and if my guys that are watching right now, I've been in a fantasy league going on 23, 24 years, and they know I'm a homer when it comes to Bears players. I try not to be, and I waited to pick Caleb Williams last year. I waited till like the 9th round.
Yeah.
And I just had to get him, and I got him, and he screwed me, man. He didn't throw picks, but he was inconsistent. The games he did well, I won, and I didn't win enough. Other than that, but yeah, I'm also real interested. We talked about running back. Is how Ben Johnson's gonna handle that situation, because we didn't add any talent at running back other than Monangai. And so what's that going to be? We lost Herbert, obviously. Gained a rookie, phenomenal pass blocker, real good short area burst as well, tackle breaking ability, ball security. I like him a lot. But how's the run game going to look? Because one of the things with Detroit is they ran to set up the pass, and they ran really well with two really good running backs, and we don't have that. So what's that going to look like? I don't know if you saw our guy Lester. He's done a whole bunch of research, and he's posted some articles and statistics on. You don't necessarily have to have an effective run game to set it up for the pass and open it up. They don't have to be game changers, but you have to run the ball. And so it'll be interesting to see how they do that. We didn't even talk about or mention before this podcast any free agent possibilities, like a Nick Chubb or J.K. Dobbins. I would not be surprised if one of those guys was added. I mentioned it to our group, the idea of how affordable these free agent running backs are going to be this year. And does it make more sense to forego drafting one and pick a starter up for cheap? And I didn't want to do that. I really, really did not. But it looks like that's a strong possibility with us. And I would not be upset or surprised if we brought in Nick Chubb to run that ball on first and second down and keep those chains moving and those defenses honest, to blow them off over the top. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we've seen those reports out there about him nearing a deal with an NFC North team, and everyone's pointing to the Bears. I mean, if it's a friendly deal, I suppose it's fine. I've been higher on Roschon than a lot of people. I mentioned Roschon in our column as a winner because we all kind of expected a top tier running back to get picked in the first 3 rounds by the Bears, and I assumed that would send Roschon to like number 3 at best. And since they didn't get that, get the 7th round pick, Monangai, I feel like Roschon is like clearly the number 2 right now for the time being,
right?
And he should get the carries. And that's a win for him because, I mean, he was maybe going to, struggle to have a spot on this team. And like right now, he's clearly number 2. So, I mean, I'm real interested to see what he can do. I can't tell you how many times last year, Brian, I got burned by Roschon Johnson on parlays where I would choose him to like low numbers, man. I'm talking like 20 yards rushing, like, oh, he'll get some carries. And then like he'd go a whole half without getting in there. And I'd be so angry. Yeah. But I mean, he should have opportunities depending on what happens with this free agent situation. But, you mentioned Monangai, and at the end, did you know much about him coming in?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I like Big Ten. You talked about Big Ten. I'm from New Jersey as well, and I've got family in Jersey, and I've got a cousin. Shout out to Dave if you're watching. He's big into college football, and he and I scout all year round. He's a Steelers fan. Talk about players and backs, and him even more than me was really high on Monangai. Watching what he's done, and past couple years, he's been impressed. You look at his stats. I mean, he had over 5 yards of carry, double-digit touchdowns, really good tackle breaking. Like we said, he didn't even fumble at all, I think, in his career.
No, 0 career fumbles. Insane.
Yeah, I mean, and his pass blocking is top notch. So I did like him. If I would have done a top 20, he would have been in my top 20. He maybe would have been top 15. He's right around that 15, 16 rated back for me this draft. But I like him. I could see the fit. He's definitely more of a David Montgomery type. Quick between the tackles, not going to beat you breakaway speed, but he's dependable, and that's even more why I would have wanted a guy like Jaden Blue to complement him. But yeah, I'm excited about him too, and I like Roschon. I actually traded for Roschon in my fantasy league because I like him. I think he's young. He's another unselfish guy. He does the dirty work. He had one of the highest conversion rates for third and fourth short and to go yardage conversions in the league. He does what he has to do, and I couldn't ask for a better debut. His first game against the Packers, he ran some dude over. He plays with that nasty edge, and it'd be interesting to see if Ben uses him more in the run game. I think the new offensive line is going to do more for that run game than any player behind the quarterback could.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
100%. Yeah, I think there was several times I was frustrated last year where they'd have short yardage and they would hand it to Swift instead of Roschon, because it seemed like when Roschon was getting those carries, he was more often than not picking it up. Yeah, I mean, I knew Monangai too, being a Big Ten fan, but I guess I hadn't thought of him as a possible Bears draft pick just because he was graded so much lower. I saw Brugler on The Athletic. He had him as like a 4th to 5th round grade. So we got him the 7th. That's a hell of a deal. But I just thought we were going to be picking a running back, way, way earlier than that. But I mean, yeah, he's a guy who certainly has the accolades. Number 2 in school history in rushing, 3,200 yards at Rutgers.
Who was number 1? Ray Rice?
I would imagine so.
Not Pacheco?
I'm not sure. Rutgers all-time leading rusher. Let me see.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but I'm curious now.
Yeah. Ray Rice, 4,900 yards. Monangai next. Yeah, 4,900. Monangai is next with 3,200.
Wow.
Pacheco's number 8, 2,400. Yeah. So I mean, he's got the accolades of, like you mentioned, he doesn't have like the top end speed, but he can break tackles. And, in that way, somewhat similar to Roschon, we'll see who ends up winning out and getting the carries. But I agree with you. The offensive line moves are going to make a huge difference. We hope this year. They should. That interior is really good. We don't know what's going to be happening. Supposedly Braxton Jones will be ready to go, but he had that injury. We know obviously Darnell is the guy out on the right side. But I think this, flows right into, we can talk about the draft pick with the Bears O-line and Ozzy Trapilo from Boston College. Now, this is a guy who is pro ready coming into the league. Last year, nobody thought that Amagaji would see the field. And, we both talked about him. I wrote about him, but we both talked about him, going into that column as the biggest losers on the team. And I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat this. Amagaji is going to slide down that depth chart automatically, I think, right behind our new guy. And Trapilo he is pro ready, whereas Amagaji came in as like a project.
Right.
We knew him coming out of FCS, he was going to need some time to be ready to start. And then because of all the injuries, he had to play. He didn't look that good, and everyone was, we picked this guy. He should be ready to play, but nobody was really expecting him to be able to play right away. But now you slot in a guy right ahead of him who is ready to play right away. And, he's a guy who mostly played on the right side. But we got Darnell out there. So this could mean like long-term. What do you think about that? Should you think Darnell would ever kick out to the left side, or do you think they would rather have him play left? Because I've seen some theories on this today from different NFL analysts.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all over the place. I wouldn't be surprised either way, but you asked what I think. I personally think that Ozzy will he'll start on the left side in his Bears career. I think the interesting thing that not many people have talked about when it comes to Darnell is how Ben Johnson has compared Darnell to Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell was a left tackle drafted with a left tackle already on the Pro Bowl left tackle already on the team. So he slid over to the right and he's been an all pro. He can absolutely play on the left. And if Ben Johnson thinks he's got a similar skill set, then Ben Johnson thinks Darnell Wright could slide to the left. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they do. Braxton Jones is not going to be gone all year. And I think it makes more sense to keep that continuity. I think it really depends on Ozzy. But I think Amagaji, he's kind of a dark horse. I agree with you. He's definitely went down a notch when it comes to, his prospects moving forward. But he wasn't pro ready as a rookie, but he's not a rookie anymore. Mm-hmm. So will an off season, a full season, with our team, even though he had to come back from injury, and then a full off season training camp, healthy, will that make him ready, especially with this competition? And, people aren't talking about that being the main competition that Ben Johnson's referring to, Ozzy and Karan. Mm-hmm. That's something I think is going to be really fascinating to watch. If we get to make it to a training camp, I'll be, fixated on those two guys, how they play and match up with our D line. But yeah, I think Ozzy, I think he'll start at left tackle, Ryan. I think it makes sense to keep all four other guys in their spots, let him pinch hit for Braxton until he gets back, slide Braxton back in there and keep those guys where they're at. I think it was a calculated move, getting a pro-ready tackle when you need someone that can step in potentially day one and play tackle. I just think that makes too much sense. But who knows, man? Ben Johnson's doing things I didn't necessarily expect. So, got to trust him.
Yeah. 6'8", 316. I guess supposedly reading about his history, I mean, he was recruited by major college powers, but stayed at Boston College because that's where he's from. He wanted to play for the hometown school, and just pretty solid all through his college career, and seen as pro ready, possibly able to start right away in the NFL. Might have that chance depending on Braxton's health. But I mean, long term, you look at this, and it seems like with Ozzy and Darnell, if things work out, like those are the two tackles of the future. And, we've got the interior fixed, some guys who are definitely getting a little bit older, but they're going to hold up for a couple of years, we would hope. We haven't talked about, we went into talking about Dahlman last time, and we ended up getting Dahlman at center, which was a huge signing for us.
Yeah.
But the guard positions should be good for right now. We got a project with Luke Newman out of Michigan State, who is not really pro ready right now, but, studying behind some of these guys like Tooney. Hopefully maybe down the line he can play if he needs to. But, our O-line is just in such better shape than a year ago. Cannot emphasize enough how much better I feel about it, at least in the off season right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm stoked. It's the part of the team that makes the engine go. And I can't wait for Ben Johnson to do what he can with that offensive line. But yeah, that Dahlman signing was absolutely massive. I think the biggest offseason acquisition we had.
Yeah.
Even after the draft, I think Drew Dahlman is that important. So it'll be interesting. We finally have, those options available to us, run game, pass game, all of it because of the offensive line. So they're not quite at the level of Detroit or Philadelphia or anything like that, but much improved from a year ago. Did you see that stat where last year we had like the 29th highest paid offensive line in the league, and this year after the free agency we're like top 5?
Yeah. It's wild. Yeah. You got the money to spend it. This is the place to spend it. I mean, we needed help. Absolutely needed help. Hey, the boss man is here. Lester is in the chat talking about the tackle position. He says he feels Wright can do both, but I'm not moving the guy who's played right tackle his NFL career. Ozzy's been repping it left tackle all season, off season, and he said he'll be good to play there if asked.
Yeah,
Lester
agreed.
has spoken. Our O-line guru at Windy City Gridiron. Absolutely.
Case closed.
Yeah. Let's start with the defense, Brian, because we haven't talked about the defense at all. The Bears traded back with their third pick, which was still in the second round at number 41 overall, and they ended up choosing at number 62 overall. They got Shamar Turner out of Texas A&M, who the Athletic had ranked as their number 56 player in this draft in their top 100. If you look at his stats, sack numbers for the tackle aren't gonna light you up at all, but he's great in run defense. And we know D-line is an area the Bears needed quite a bit of help in last year. And we've made some moves. You mentioned Grady Jarrett earlier on the show. How you feeling about this one?
You talking about the pick itself or just our defense in general?
Oh, the pick itself, Shamar Turner.
Yeah, Shamar Turner. Yeah, I was bummed we just missed out on my draft crush, RJ Harvey. We just missed out on him. He got picked 2 spots ahead by the Broncos, which I think it's a phenomenal landing spot for him. And spoiler alert, if you play fantasy, you want RJ Harvey on your team this year and beyond, especially in Dynasty. Get RJ Harvey. Sean Payton is going to make that kid something special. But as far as Shamar Turner, I think I had a conversation with one of the guys in our article today about how he has played both defensive end and defensive tackle, and I think he's more of a defensive tackle. And one of the things I love about him, but I'm also curious to see how it plays out, is his attitude, mentality on the field. He plays with that, that fire, that competitive edge, not too dissimilar from an Akeem Hicks. He's got that kind of a boiling blood, always running hot through the whistle. And I think that's where Zach Pickens was lacking. I feel like when we saw Zach Pickens flash at all, he was playing with that sort of energy. So I like that with Shamar Turner. I think he's got the length and he's got the quickness and strength to make a difference and play both inside and outside. So I like the pick because I do feel like we needed some young defensive tackle help. If we had our ruthers, as they say, at number 10 overall, my short list was Mason Graham, Ashton Genty, Will Campbell. Those are my guys. So defensive tackle, left tackle, stud running back. So I wanted a defensive tackle, and I think Shamar Turner could be it, especially being tutored by Grady Jarrett. But yeah, I think it was a good pick. That one didn't disappoint me at all. I actually kind of liked it, and the more I look into it, the more I like it. But what about you? How did you feel about that one?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted us to beef up the O-line, certainly. I like the pick. I've read that they're gonna have to discipline him a little bit, but like he put on a ton of weight going into 2024, which is why I read he put on 30 pounds, yet he was still basically just as quick, which is insane. He put on 30 pounds and you're still just as fast out there. He played through like a stress fracture with his leg, had to have a rod put in his leg, played through all of that. Seems like a beast, absolute beast. You mentioned it. He played on the edge a lot early in his college career, moved to tackle, can play both places, but I would agree. I think at tackle, especially with his success stopping the run, that's the spot for him. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're bringing in a guy on your D line who you need to discipline a little bit with his playing style, you got Dennis Allen, this guy with so much experience in the league. I mean, I would feel like we're set up to handle that and to pull up his weaknesses and help him deliver where we need to. And you just add him to that rotation. He doesn't have to play every snap, but start him out, add him to that rotation, play more as the season goes on. You're pretty good scouting report all around. Played a lot in college, so I like it. I think it was a good pick.
Yeah, in a good conference,
Yeah.
So I agree.
Yeah, what do we got here going on in the chat? Oh, I thought I saw a new one. Still Lester there. You guys have any thoughts on these picks either? Feel free to chime in and let us know your thoughts on all of these draft picks. But no, I mean, I think we go into the draft and we were all expecting like an edge rusher, and didn't end up having that fall to us exactly as we maybe would have liked. But this is a pretty highly regarded prospect, like I said, rated number 56 overall by The Athletic coming into the draft. So yeah, they said in their scouting report, projects best as a penetrating one gap tackle.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Winners and losers wise, because we're running low on time here, Brian. I don't want to be up all night, but we're almost to that 1 hour mark. Anything else on the winners and losers we haven't got to that you wanted to hit?
No, I think we pretty much hit the main ones for me. At the end of the day, we mentioned some losers, but I think they have a great chance of still being successful, at least on offense. I think a guy like Zach Pickens, I think his days are numbered, personally. But we mentioned DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, and I think they can still succeed. So, the draft might have just kind of put a fire, or maybe put them on notice, if you will. But the type of players they are, the type of, they're not going to take away DJ Moore's #1 title unless he gives it to him.
Yeah.
And so I'm expecting big years, especially from an efficiency standpoint, from both of those players. I'm expecting big numbers on offense with everybody sharing the load. That's one thing that keeps getting talked about in the Den and everywhere else at WCG is, well, how are they going to spread it around? How many targets is each person? That doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter one lick to me. What matters to me is that they're schemed open, the ball gets moved down the field, and points are scored, and we win games because of it. And I don't think any of them are going to care. DJ Moore started with Carolina. Then he came with us when we're still in rebuild mode. He wants to win. Cole Kmet is a hometown Bears fan. He's not been a part of a winning team with the Bears. He wants to win too. And these guys want to win. If Ben Johnson can scheme them around to win games and score points, I don't think anybody's going to care if they have 100 targets or 1,000 yards. I don't think it matters. And I'm more, and that's why I say the one consistent in all this is Caleb Williams. He's the one that's going to be spreading the ball around, scoring points. So I think, again, from a fantasy perspective, Caleb Williams is the guy you want. He'll probably come pretty cheap, although Ben Johnson is bringing some fanfare with him. So, maybe you might have to get him, a couple rounds earlier this year. But yeah. So I think again, winners, losers, biggest one, Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the stats sheet, certainly that's where a lot of this is going to show up on Caleb's stats. You're talking about there's only one football to spread around. That's true. And, I saw some of that in the comments section too, on our first column on the winners and losers, because I mentioned Rome. And, people are like, oh, but, we got this new receiver. We got the new tight end. Is Rome really going to break out? And it's like, well, he can break out without having 1,200 yards receiving. Like what did he have last year? 700 something, 734 yards receiving last year. Look, but there was games where you didn't even know he was on the field.
Right.
So as long as he's a factor and he's making those big plays, he doesn't have to have 1,300 yards receiving to have it be like a breakout year for him, where you look at this guy and you realize, he can be #1 moving forward, like we've all thought. So, just looking for him to show up more in the big moments, I think. Like to your point, yes, there is only one football and a lot of weapons, but Caleb, in the end, he is going to be the big winner, because I think his stats should really pop this year as long as he stays healthy and upright, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we are almost exactly at 1 hour, guys. So we are going to wrap things up here. I think we will be checking in again this offseason before training camp, I am sure, Brian. We'll figure out another time we want to come on when we got something hot to talk about.
One final thought for me, draft
Yes.
wise. I think the Lions had the best draft other than us in the NFC North. But one pick that's not being talked about enough, and our rivals, is a receiver for the Packers, and it's not the first one they took. Savion Williams in the 3rd round, I think, is going to be their wide receiver 1. It might not be soon, but I think he will be their best receiver on the team. They got him in the 3rd round. That pick scares me. Out of all the picks and all the NFC North teams, Savion Williams is one that has my attention. Not Matthew Golden. You know, I like the Vikings, Donovan Jackson. I liked him. I thought he would have been a great pick for us in the 2nd round. I like Tyreek Williams. I like Tate Ratledge, and the Bears like Tate Ratledge that Detroit got. But Savion Williams is one that keep an eye on because he's a stud from TCU.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll connect with you guys again here soon. Maybe schedule release time. We'll get together. We'll talk about the games upcoming and preview some of those games. We'll get with you guys. And we like the fan interaction. If you have specific times of the off season you want to chat with us, let us know. If you want to talk every week, let us know. We kind of like hanging out with you guys. And as always, let us know what you were drinking. I'm almost too deep in this double IPA, and I'm going to sleep well tonight.
Yes.
And it's good, man. It's good seeing you. This was a nice, tasty cold brew. Excited about the Bears. I didn't expect all the curveballs, last weekend, but I'm excited for it. And yeah, man, I can't wait. Hopefully we can get together again soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think schedule release will be the optimal time, probably, unless something big happens before then. But I mean, that's only a couple of weeks away, and that'll be a really fun time to do a show. You mentioned it, fan interaction, listener interaction. That's always great. We're planning on getting some guests on this show, especially once we get to the season. And we got some names that we're hoping to connect with, and we'll make this a really fun year on Bears Over Beers. I shouldn't even say a fun year because this is now a year-round podcast. So we will a fun 2025,
right?
As we roll into the season and training camp and everything else. Going to be a ton of fun. We got some lofty goals, Bryan, for who we can get on this show. I've seen you tweeting, and that would certainly be a fun one if we get Kyle Long on the show. That's the unicorn, right?
Yeah, Kyle Long would be awesome. He would fit right in. Seth Rollins would be another good one. We should get Greg Braggs back. Braggs.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Daly over in Ireland. He's one that I've connected with. He'll get on here. Yeah, we'll get some guys. Olin Kreutz would be super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be fun. We'll get some guys. Jay Cutler, that'd be super fun to talk with Jay. Smoking Jay. Yeah, he'll probably smoke a stogie on the set with us. But yeah, if you all tag the names, tag them on Twitter with in one of our posts. If we all tag them, they'll join.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
Look, we got some connections. We can pull some strings. You're a former college running back. I cover the world of pro wrestling, so also maybe I can pull some strings and get Seth on here. I once interviewed on my podcast Top Rope Nation his partner at his pro wrestling school. Maybe I need to get a hold of him. Put me in contact with Seth.
Whoa, hey, I'll see if I can get Brandon Marshall on the squad.
Yeah, there you go.
I played ball with him, so let's see if we can do that.
This is why you all need to keep tuning into this show and all the other great shows on Second City Gridiron. Great.
Yeah, we got a new one too, right? We have a new one.
Yeah.
I heard the first episode of that. I know there was another one I think yesterday, but I didn't tune into it yet.
Yeah, beefing up the rotation. Absolutely, always looking to add talent. This Lester, he runs quite the ship. Lester and JB, both of them. Got to give them both props. But,
cheers to both you guys.
Yeah, the Mac and Reed show. So shout out to those guys. They are the latest here on Second City Gridiron. And of course, you can follow the show. We are on Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, at Bears Over Beers. You can follow Bryan at Bryan Orenchuk. I'm at Ryan Drosty. And it looks like we'll probably be talking to you here in about 2 to 3 weeks. So enjoy your beers. Enjoy the Bears, and we'll talk to you all again real soon. Take care, everybody.